Hey folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Econosite. And in this video, let's talk about India's tax culture and how does the country rank on one key tax related metric. A key tax measure here is the tax to GDP ratio. This ratio measures a nation's tax revenues in relation to the size of its economy. A higher ratio indicates strong government revenues and therefore a higher capacity to spend on things like building schools, hospitals, roads, railways, airports, defense, and so on. Now, data from 2022 on some of the major economies reveal that European countries understand tax collection. Among the G20 economies, the top 3 by tax to GDP ratio all belong to the European Union, with France leading the way. The United States sits somewhere in the middle with tax to GDP ratio at 28%. That is, US citizens have a lower tax burden when compared with some European nations. Whereas India languishes at the bottom with just 12% tax to GDP. This is a problem for India because according to the World Bank, tax to GDP ratio of at least 15% is needed for economic growth and poverty reduction. India is 3 percentage points below the desired minimum. Now, India has improved its tax revenues in the last decade, almost tripled it in rupee terms, and has succeeded in bringing millions out of poverty with this low tax to GDP ratio of just 12%. But can India do even better? Certainly yes. That brings us to the topic of India's tax culture. India wants to become a developed nation by 2047. For that, the country must mobilize massive resources for nation building. It needs to find a way to increase tax to GDP ratio without burdening the existing taxpayer. The reason I say that is because look at how few in India pay taxes. As of the most recent government data available, about 62 million income tax returns were filed. Of that, around 43 million paid no tax. That means the remaining 19.3 million paid all the direct taxes. India is a nation of 1.4 billion. It has a total eligible adult population of roughly 880 million. That is, those that can work and pay taxes are around 880 million. Of those, only 19.3 million are paying direct income taxes, a mere 2.2% of the total eligible adult population. This ratio in France, Germany, UK, and the United States is above 50%. I know India is not a developed nation, so it is unfair to compare India with these 4 countries. But I don't believe that only 2% of India's adult population should pay taxes. There is something amiss in India's tax culture. Can this be changed? Well, research in behavioral economics suggests that tax exemptions can reduce taxpayers' intrinsic motivation to comply. Tax compliance is closely linked to civic responsibility. When individuals are required to pay taxes, they develop a sense of ownership and responsibility towards public goods and services. So, experts propose that India should implement universal tax reporting and minimal tax contribution. Instead of exempting a certain income group completely from paying taxes, have them pay a nominal tax payment of maybe 10 rupees per year, cost of a cup of tea from a street vendor. This will foster a culture of accountability, transparency, and civic engagement. This will likely bring more economic activity into the formal sector. If young adults entering the workforce are required to report their income and pay a nominal income tax, it is more likely that they will continue this practice of paying income taxes as their income goes up in the future. In summary, India's tax culture is not conducive to its ambitions of becoming a developed nation in under 3 decades. In terms of tax to GDP ratio, among the G20 economies, India languishes at the bottom. India needs a massive rethinking of its tax policy. It needs to bring in more adults into the direct tax net. Without that, India risks falling short of the nation's true potential. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.